Welcome to today's Lost Souls, where we bring you the most impactful and unforgettable stories from around the world. Today, we remember the lives of remarkable individuals whose legacies continue to inspire and resonate. From iconic musicians to trailblazing activists, join us as we celebrate their extraordinary contributions and bid farewell to those who have left an indelible mark on our lives. Stay tuned for a journey through their incredible stories.
Terry Reid. Passed away at the age of 75, Terry Reid was a highly respected British rock singer, songwriter, and guitarist, whose powerful voice and emotive style earned him the nickname Super Lungs. Reid was widely admired among musicians and critics for his vocal range and soulful performances, even though major commercial success eluded him. His legacy is marked by influence rather than chart-topping hits, and he is remembered as an artist's artist in the rock world. Born Terence James Reid on November 13, 1949. In Huntingdonshire, England, Reid began his music career early, joining Peter J. and the Jaywalkers before opening for major acts like the Rolling Stones, Cream, and Fleetwood Mac. His debut solo album launched in 1968, kicking off a career that spanned decades. Reid was famously offered the role of lead vocalist for the newly forming Led Zeppelin when the Yardbirds dissolved, but he declined, recommending Robert Plant and John Bonham instead. He also turned down an invitation from Deep Purple for similar reasons. Reid's distinctive sound was praised by legends such as Aretha Franklin, who acknowledged him as one of the three big things happening in England alongside the Beatles and Rolling Stones in the late 1960s. Fellow musicians like Graham Nash and Robert Plant lauded his vocal power and emotional delivery, describing him as one of the greatest voices of that period. His 1973 album River is often cited as the highlight of his career, blending progressive folk, blues, R&B, jazz, and pop influences. Despite modest commercial success, it is now considered a minor masterpiece. Later in life, Reid worked with notable artists including Bonnie Raitt, Don Henley, and Jackson Browne, and he continued to perform and collaborate with various musicians, until shortly before his death. In 2025, after a battle with cancer, Terry Reid passed away on August 4th in Rancho Mirage, California. He leaves behind his wife, Annette Grady, 2 daughters from a previous relationship, and 2 stepdaughters. He is remembered for his remarkable talent, integrity, and the profound impact he had on his peers and fans worldwide. Jeannie Seely passed away at the age of 85. Jeannie Seely was a pioneering American country music singer, songwriter, and Grand Ole Opry icon, known affectionately as Miss Country Soul. Her expressive voice and spirited personality made her one of country music's most enduring and beloved figures, with a career that spanned more than 6 decades. Born Marilyn Jean Seely on July 6, 1940, in Titusville, Pennsylvania, she developed an early passion for country music, inspired by her musical family and local radio programs. After moving to Nashville in the mid-1960s and signing with Monument Records, Seely struck gold with her 1966 hit, Don't Touch Me, a heartfelt ballad written by Hank Cochran. The song crossed over into the mainstream charts, won her a Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance, and established her as a major voice in the genre. Other notable songs included A Wanderin' Man, Can I Sleep in Your Arms, and her duet with Jack Green, Wish I Didn't Have to Miss You. Seely was not only an accomplished singer, but also a trailblazer for women in country music. She broke conventions with her bold fashion choices, such as wearing a miniskirt on the Opry stage when it was considered taboo, and she was the first woman to host a segment on the Grand Ole Opry in 1985. Over her lifetime, Seely performed on the Opry more than 5,300 times, a record that remains unmatched, showcasing her dedication to the institution and to the fans who loved her. In 2025, despite facing significant health challenges, including multiple back surgeries, emergency abdominal operations, pneumonia, and an extended ICU stay, Seely remained active in music and mentoring younger artists. Sadly, she passed away on August 1, 2025, at Summit Medical Center in Hermitage, Tennessee, from complications related to an intestinal infection. Her death followed the loss of her husband, Gene Ward, who died the previous December. Tributes poured in from across the country music world, with stars like Dolly Parton calling her a dear friend and a national treasure. Jeannie Seely's empowering spirit, soulful voice, and resilient career left an indelible mark on country music, inspiring generations of artists to come. Hulk Hogan passed away at the age of 71. Terry Gene Bollea, better known as Hulk Hogan, was an iconic American professional wrestler and media personality whose impact on the world of sports entertainment is unparalleled. Born on August 11, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia, Hogan became the symbol of professional wrestling's global boom in the 1980s and is widely regarded as one of the greatest wrestling stars of all time. Hogan's rise to prominence began in the late 1970s, with his debut under various names until fully embracing the Hulk Hogan persona in 1979. With his towering 6'8" frame, charismatic personality, and signature blonde mustache and bandanas, Hogan quickly captivated audiences. His persona, part hero, part larger-than-life entertainer, turned wrestling into a pop culture phenomenon. His first WWF Championship win in 1984 against the Iron Sheik heralded the birth of Hulkamania, a fan frenzy that saw Hogan headline 8 of the first 9 WrestleMania events and become the face of wrestling worldwide. One of Hogan's most iconic moments came at WrestleMania 3rd in 1987, when he body-slammed Andre the Giant, an event forever etched in wrestling history as the slam heard round the world. Hogan's influence extended beyond the ring, with crossover appearances in films like Rocky III, where he played the wrestler Thunder Lips, and numerous television shows, contributing to his fame beyond wrestling fans. Despite challenges, including controversies over steroid use and personal legal battles, Hogan remained a beloved figure who helped shape the modern wrestling industry. Over his career, he won 6 WWF championships and 6 WCW World Heavyweight Championships, becoming a 12-time world champion. On July 24, 2025, Hogan passed away at his home in Clearwater, Florida, due to a heart attack complicated by chronic lymphocytic leukemia and atrial fibrillation. Surrounded by family, his death marked the end of an era for wrestling and entertainment. Hulk Hogan's legacy lives on in the millions of fans he inspired, the pop cultural movement he ignited, and the indomitable spirit he embodied both inside and outside the ring. James Earl Jones passed away at the age of 93. James Earl Jones was a legendary American actor whose commanding presence and resonant voice left an indelible mark on stage, screen, and popular culture. Born on January 17, 1931, in Arcaboutla, Mississippi, Jones overcame a childhood stutter to become one of the most celebrated actors of his generation, renowned for his powerful performances and distinctive voice. Jones's career spanned more than 6 decades, during which he won critical acclaim on Broadway, in films, and on television. He won 2 Tony Awards for his performances in The Great White Hope and Fences, and made history as one of the first black actors nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor. His deep, authoritative voice has been immortalized through his iconic role as the voice of Darth Vader in the Star Wars saga, a role that defined a generation of filmgoers, and as the noble Mufasa in the original 1994 and 2019 remakes of Disney's The Lion King. His work extended beyond iconic roles. Jones delivered memorable performances in classics such as Field of Dreams, Coming to America, Dr. Strangelove, and the television series Gabriel's Fire. He was also the voice behind the phrase, "This is CNN," serving as the network's distinctive announcer for decades. Jones's life was not without struggle. His battle to overcome his speech impediment shaped his dedication to his craft and fueled his passion for acting. He was a trailblazer who broke racial barriers in theater and film, earning numerous accolades including Emmy, Grammy, and Kennedy Center honors. In 2012, he received an honorary Academy Award recognizing his lifetime contribution to cinema and theater. James Earl Jones passed away peacefully on September 9, 2024, at his home in Pawling, New York, surrounded by family. His death was met with tributes from across the entertainment industry, honoring him as a master of his craft and a profound influence on generations of actors. His legacy continues through his unforgettable roles, his groundbreaking achievements, and his enduring impact on the arts. Tom Lehrer passed away at the age of 97. Tom Lehrer was a unique and influential American musical satirist, mathematician, and academic, whose sharp wit and clever lyrics made him a cult icon. Born Thomas Andrew Lehrer on April 9, 1928, in Manhattan, New York City, Lehrer's work spanned the realms of music, comedy, and mathematics, establishing him as one of the most distinctive voices of the 20th century. Lehrer's musical career blossomed in the 1950s and 1960s, during which he became celebrated for his satirical songs that humorously critiqued politics, society, and human behavior with a blend of dark humor and bright melodies. His famous pieces include Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, The Masochism Tango, The Elements, and The Vatican Rag, many of which are still revered in comedy and music circles for their cleverness and biting satire. Lehrer often performed solo at the piano, delivering his songs with a Broadway-like flair combined with a mischievous smile. Despite his artistic success, Lehrer chose to focus primarily on academia, obtaining his degree from Harvard University. At the age of 18 and later teaching mathematics at prestigious institutions like Harvard, MIT, and the University of California. His mathematical background heavily influenced his songwriting, often incorporating complex scientific and intellectual themes into his humor. In the early 1970s, Lehrer retired from public performances, although his work continued to inspire comedians, musicians, and scholars. He officially released all his songs into the public domain in 2022, allowing free access to his music worldwide. Notable figures such as Weird Al Yankovic and Daniel Radcliffe have cited Lehrer as a significant influence. Tom Lehrer passed away peacefully on July 26, 2025, at his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. His death was confirmed by his longtime friend David Herder. Lehrer is remembered not just for his groundbreaking satirical songs, but also for his intellect, humility, and enduring impact on both music and mathematics. Quincy Jones passed away at the age of 91. Quincy Jones was a monumental figure in American music and entertainment, renowned for his prodigious talents as a composer, producer, arranger, and bandleader. Born Quincy Delight Jones Jr. on March 14, 1933 in Chicago, Illinois, Jones' extraordinary career spanned over 7 decades, during which he fundamentally shaped the sound and direction of popular music worldwide. Jones began his musical journey as a jazz trumpeter and quickly gained recognition as an arranger for leading big bands, including that of Count Basie. Over time, his incredible versatility allowed him to thrive across genres, producing landmark albums for iconic artists like Michael Jackson, notably Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad, which remain some of the best-selling and most influential records ever made. His production of Michael Jackson's Thriller remains a high watermark in music history, turning the album into the greatest-selling album of all time. Beyond his work with artists, Jones composed and arranged scores for films such as In the Heat of the Night, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture, The Color Purple, and The Wiz. He also produced the historic charity single We Are the World in 1985, uniting the biggest names in pop and rock to raise money for famine relief in Africa. Throughout his career, Jones received numerous accolades, including 28 Grammy Awards, a Tony Award, and the Kennedy Center Honors. He was an EGOT winner, one of the few entertainers awarded Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Awards, highlighting his extraordinary versatility and impact across different entertainment fields. Jones was also recognized for his roles as a music executive and advocate for civil rights, nurturing diverse talents and helping to increase opportunities for African Americans in the industry. Quincy Jones passed away peacefully on November 3, 2024, at his home in Bel Air, Los Angeles, surrounded by family. His family noted the profound loss but chose to celebrate his remarkable life and unparalleled contributions to music and culture. His legacy continues through his timeless music, his groundbreaking work, and the countless artists he inspired. Henry Franklin Winkler. Henry Franklin Winkler was born on October 30, 1945 in Manhattan, New York City, to a family that had fled the rising tide of Nazi persecution in Germany. His parents, Harry Irving Winkler and Ilse Anna Marie Winkler, were Jewish immigrants who had escaped from Berlin in 1939, carrying with them the trauma of leaving everything behind and the determination to build a new life in America. This immigrant experience would profoundly shape Henry's worldview and instill in him a deep appreciation for opportunity and hard work. Growing up in a household where German was spoken alongside English, Henry experienced the complex dynamics of assimilation that many immigrant families faced in post-war America. His father worked in the lumber business, eventually building a successful company, while his mother focused on raising Henry and his younger sister, Beatrice. The Winkler household was one where education was highly valued, but academic achievement came with unique challenges that young Henry couldn't yet understand. From an early age, Henry struggled significantly in school, finding himself unable to keep up with his peers despite being clearly intelligent and creative. Reading was particularly difficult, and he would spend hours trying to decipher words that seemed to dance and blur on the page. Mathematics presented similar challenges, with numbers appearing to rearrange themselves before his eyes. His teachers often labeled him as lazy, unmotivated, or simply not applying himself, comments that deeply wounded the young boy who was desperately trying to succeed. The frustration of academic struggles was compounded by his parents' high expectations. Coming from a culture that placed enormous emphasis on educational achievement, Harry and Ilse couldn't understand why their son was performing so poorly in school. They tried various approaches, from hiring tutors to implementing strict study schedules, but nothing seemed to help. The concept of learning disabilities was not widely understood or recognized in the 1950s and early 1960s, leaving Henry and his family without answers or appropriate support. Despite these academic challenges, Henry found refuge and joy in creative pursuits. He discovered an early passion for storytelling and performance, often entertaining family members with elaborate tales and character impressions. His imagination was vivid and boundless, creating entire worlds and scenarios that captivated those around him. This natural theatrical ability became his sanctuary, a place where he could excel and gain the positive recognition that eluded him in the classroom. The social aspects of school presented their own set of challenges. Henry often felt different from his classmates, not just because of his academic struggles, but also due to his family's immigrant background and the lingering effects of wartime trauma that permeated his household. He learned to use humor as both a shield and a sword, developing a quick wit that could deflect uncomfortable questions about his poor grades, while endearing him to peers and teachers alike. During his elementary and middle school years, Henry's parents moved the family to the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where they lived in a comfortable apartment that reflected their growing financial stability. However, the academic pressures only intensified as Henry progressed through school. High school at McBurney School, a private institution, brought new challenges as the coursework became more demanding and his undiagnosed dyslexia made traditional learning methods nearly impossible. The teenage years were particularly difficult for Henry as he watched his classmates excel academically. While he continued to struggle with basic reading and writing tasks, he developed elaborate coping mechanisms, memorizing information rather than reading it, and relying heavily on his exceptional listening skills to absorb information during lectures. His teachers remained largely unsympathetic, viewing his difficulties as a lack of effort rather than a genuine learning difference. Despite the academic struggles, Henry's personality began to shine through more brightly during these formative years. He became known for his humor, his kindness to others, and his ability to make friends across different social groups. These qualities would later become his trademark. But during adolescence, they served as vital survival skills in navigating a school environment that often felt hostile and incomprehensible. The pressure to succeed academically created significant stress within the Winkler household. Family dinners often became tense affairs, where Henry's grades were discussed and dissected with his parents, unable to understand why their intelligent, articulate son couldn't perform at the level they expected. This dynamic created a complex relationship with authority figures that would influence Henry's later portrayals of characters who challenged traditional expectations and hierarchies. As Henry approached graduation, the question of college loomed large. Despite his poor academic record, his parents were determined that he would pursue higher education. The college application process was particularly stressful, as Henry's test scores and grades didn't reflect his actual capabilities or potential. However, his natural charisma and unique perspective began to emerge during interviews and personal interactions with admissions counselors. The childhood experiences of struggle, frustration, and eventual resilience would later inform many of Henry's most memorable performances and his approach to helping others. The young boy who couldn't read properly would grow up to become not only a successful actor, but also an advocate for children with learning disabilities, using his platform to ensure that future generations wouldn't face the same misunderstanding and isolation he experienced. This foundation of adversity, mixed with family love, immigrant determination, and creative passion, would prove to be the perfect training ground for a career in entertainment where authenticity, resilience, and the ability to connect with audiences' emotions are paramount. The struggles of his youth, rather than defining limitations, became the source of his greatest strengths and most meaningful contributions to both entertainment and society. Career breakthrough and successful films. Henry Winkler's journey to stardom was far from conventional, marked by years of rejection, persistence, and an unwavering belief in his creative abilities, despite the academic challenges that had plagued his youth. After graduating from McBurney School and somehow managing to gain admission to Emerson College in Boston, Henry found himself in an environment where his natural theatrical talents could finally flourish without the constraints of traditional academic evaluation. At Emerson College, Henry discovered his true calling in the drama department, where professors and fellow students recognized his exceptional ability to inhabit characters and bring authentic emotion to his performances. For the first time in his educational experience, he was being evaluated on skills that came naturally to him, rather than the reading and writing abilities that had been such sources of frustration. His confidence began to bloom as he threw himself into campus productions, earning praise for his versatility and natural stage presence. The transition from college to professional acting proved to be another series of challenges, but ones that Henry was better equipped to handle given his newfound confidence. After graduating from Emerson in 1967, he made the decision to pursue graduate studies at Yale School of Drama, one of the most prestigious acting programs in the country. This decision represented a significant leap of faith, as his academic record hardly suggested he would thrive in such a competitive environment. At Yale, Henry encountered some of the finest acting instructors in the country and was exposed to classical training methods that refined his natural abilities. He studied alongside future stars and under professors who had worked with legendary performers. The rigorous training in voice, movement, and character development provided him with the technical foundation to complement his intuitive understanding of human nature. His thesis project and final performances garnered attention from both faculty and visiting industry professionals. Upon graduating from Yale in 1970, Henry faced the daunting reality of trying to make a living as an actor in New York City. The early 1970s were a challenging time for aspiring actors with limited opportunities and fierce competition for every role. Henry spent years auditioning for commercial work, small theater productions, and minor television roles, often facing rejection due to his unconventional look and energy that didn't fit the leading man mold that was popular at the time. The breakthrough that would change everything came in 1974 when Henry auditioned for a small supporting role in a new television pilot called Happy Days. The show was conceived as a nostalgic look back at the 1950s and the character of Arthur. Fonz Fonzarelli was originally intended to be a minor recurring character, a tough guy motorcycle rider who would appear occasionally to add some edge to the otherwise wholesome family sitcom. Henry's audition for the role was memorable for all the right reasons. He brought a unique interpretation to the character that went beyond the typical bad boy stereotype. While Fona was supposed to be intimidating and rebellious, Henry infused him with vulnerability, loyalty, and an unexpected moral compass that made him both dangerous and endearing. The producers were immediately struck by how Henry could make the character both threatening and lovable, tough yet principled. When Happy Days premiered, it initially struggled to find its audience, but the character of Fonza began to resonate with viewers in ways that surprised everyone involved with the production. Henry's portrayal brought depth and nuance to what could have been a one-dimensional character, creating someone who embodied the cool rebellion that teenagers admired while maintaining the values that parents could respect. The famous leather jacket, the motorcycle, and the iconic "I" became cultural phenomena almost overnight. The success of Fonzie transformed Henry from a struggling actor into a household name virtually overnight. By the show's second season, his character had become so popular that the storylines began to revolve more around him, and he was promoted from supporting player to one of the main stars. The show's ratings soared, and Henry found himself at the center of a cultural phenomenon that would define the 1970s and early 1980s. The transition to film success came naturally as Henry's popularity on television opened doors to movie opportunities. His first major film role came in 1977 with Heroes, a drama where he played a troubled Vietnam War veteran struggling to readjust to civilian life. This role allowed Henry to showcase his dramatic range beyond the comedic timing that had made Fona famous, proving that he could handle serious material with the same authenticity that made his television character so beloved. The success of Heroes led to other film opportunities, including the one and only in 1978, where Henry played an aspiring wrestler and actor. While not a massive box office success, the film demonstrated his ability to carry a movie as the lead character and showed his willingness to take on physically demanding roles that required extensive preparation and training. One of Henry's most significant film successes came with his work behind the camera as well as in front of it. He became involved in producing and developing projects that aligned with his values and interests, including family-friendly content that could entertain without relying on cynicism or inappropriate material. This approach to film reflected his understanding of his audience and his desire to create content that could be enjoyed by multiple generations. The 1982 film Night Shift marked another important milestone in Henry's career, as he took on a supporting role alongside Michael Keaton in a comedy that showcased his ability to work as part of an ensemble cast rather than carrying the entire production on his shoulders. His performance in the film was praised for its subtlety and timing, proving that his skills extended far beyond the iconic character that had made him famous. The Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Henry also began to establish himself as a director, working on episodes of Happy Days and other television programs. This behind-the-scenes experience gave him a deeper understanding of the entertainment industry and allowed him to have greater creative control over the projects he was involved with. His directing work was characterized by the same attention to character development and authentic emotion that had made his acting so compelling. The transition from television star to respected film actor and filmmaker wasn't without its challenges. Henry had to work hard to convince both audiences and industry professionals that he was more than just Fonz, that he had the range and depth to take on diverse roles across different genres. Some critics and casting directors initially struggled to see past the iconic character, but Henry's persistent work in different types of projects gradually expanded perceptions of his capabilities. The financial success that came with his television and film work allowed Henry to be more selective about his projects, choosing roles that interested him creatively rather than simply accepting whatever opportunities came his way. This selective approach meant that some of his later projects were smaller in scale but more personally meaningful, allowing him to work with directors and actors he admired while exploring different aspects of his craft. The impact of Henry's early success extended beyond his personal career, as he became a role model for other actors who didn't fit the traditional Hollywood mold. His success proved that authenticity and unique perspective could be more valuable than conventional good looks or typical leading man characteristics. This lesson would inspire countless actors who followed in his footsteps, showing them that staying true to their own unique qualities could be a path to success rather than an obstacle to overcome. Health challenges and medical discoveries. Throughout his life, Henry Winkler's relationship with health and medical challenges has been complex and deeply personal, involving both struggles that began in childhood and discoveries that came much later in life. The most significant of these health-related issues was his lifelong battle with dyslexia, a learning disability that went undiagnosed for decades and profoundly impacted every aspect of his personal and professional development. For most of Henry's childhood and young adult years, his severe difficulties with reading, writing, and information processing were misunderstood by educators, family members, and even Henry himself. The symptoms that we now recognize as classic indicators of dyslexia were interpreted as laziness, lack of intelligence, or simple unwillingness to apply himself academically. This misdiagnosis had profound psychological effects, creating deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and frustration that persisted well into his successful career. The discovery of his dyslexia came relatively late in Henry's life, when he was already an established actor in his 30s. His son Max was experiencing similar academic struggles to those Henry had faced as a child. And during the process of having Max evaluated for learning disabilities, Henry began to recognize his own symptoms and challenges. The revelation that his lifelong struggles had a name and were the result of a legitimate neurological difference rather than personal failings was both liberating and emotionally overwhelming. The formal diagnosis of dyslexia provided Henry with a new framework for understanding his past experiences and current challenges. Suddenly, the hours of frustration trying to read scripts, the elaborate memorization techniques he had developed, and the constant fear of being exposed as somehow intellectually inferior all made sense within the context of a recognized learning disability. This understanding allowed him to develop more effective coping strategies, and perhaps more importantly, to forgive himself for the struggles that had caused him so much pain. Learning to manage dyslexia as an adult actor presented unique challenges that most people never consider. Reading scripts, memorizing lines, and processing written directions required significantly more time and effort than it did for his colleagues. Henry developed sophisticated techniques for script analysis, often having scripts read aloud to him multiple times and creating complex systems of notes and visual cues to help him remember his lines and blocking. The physical demands of his career also presented health challenges that accumulated over time. Years of performing his own stunts, as Fonz, including motorcycle riding and physical comedy sequences, took a toll on his body. The leather jacket and tight-fitting costumes required for the character, combined with the physical demands of television production schedules, sometimes created discomfort and strain that Henry had to manage while maintaining his energetic on-screen presence. As Henry aged, he became more open about discussing the health challenges he had faced, particularly as he became an advocate for children with learning disabilities. He began speaking publicly about his experiences with dyslexia, sharing how the condition had affected his self-esteem and academic performance, while also emphasizing the creative advantages that can come from thinking differently. His advocacy work brought him into contact with medical professionals and researchers who were working to better understand and treat learning disabilities. The psychological impact of living with an undiagnosed learning disability for so many years cannot be understated. Henry has spoken candidly about the depression and anxiety that resulted from constantly feeling like he was failing at tasks that seemed easy for others. The constant stress of trying to hide his difficulties and maintain his career while struggling with basic reading and writing tasks created ongoing mental health challenges that required professional support and personal resilience to overcome. Henry's approach to managing his health challenges became increasingly holistic as he gained more understanding of his condition and its effects. He worked with specialists to develop personalized strategies for managing dyslexia in his professional life, including techniques for script preparation, line memorization, and on-set communication that accommodated his learning style while maintaining his effectiveness as an actor and director. The discovery of his dyslexia also led Henry to become more aware of other aspects of his health and well-being. He began paying closer attention to stress management, recognizing how anxiety about his learning challenges could impact his overall physical health. This awareness led to a more comprehensive approach to health maintenance that included regular medical checkups, stress reduction techniques, and lifestyle adjustments designed to support his neurological differences. One of the most significant aspects of Henry's health journey has been his transformation from someone who felt ashamed of his learning differences to becoming a passionate advocate for others facing similar challenges. He has worked with numerous organizations dedicated to supporting individuals with learning disabilities, sharing his story to help reduce stigma and encourage others to seek proper diagnosis and support. The writing career that Henry developed later in life, co-authoring a series of children's books about a character named Hank Zipser, who struggles with dyslexia, became both a therapeutic outlet and a way to help other children understand that learning differences don't define limitations, but rather represent different ways of thinking and processing information. This creative work required him to confront his own relationship with written language and find new ways to communicate effectively despite his dyslexia. Henry, S health advocacy extends beyond learning disabilities to broader issues of mental health and self-acceptance. He has spoken about the importance of seeking help when struggling with depression or anxiety, and has been open about his own experiences with therapy and counseling as tools for managing the psychological effects of his learning challenges. His willingness to discuss these topics publicly has helped normalize conversations about mental health, particularly for men of his generation who were often taught to suppress emotional difficulties. The relationship between creativity and learning disabilities has become a central theme in Henry's understanding of his own health and capabilities. He has observed that many of the qualities that made him successful as an actor, his ability to think outside conventional patterns, his intuitive understanding of character motivation, and his skill at improvisation may be related to the same neurological differences that made traditional academic learning so challenging. As Henry has aged, he has become increasingly focused on maintaining his physical health to support his continued work in the entertainment industry. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, and stress management have become important components of his daily routine, allowing him to maintain the energy and stamina required for demanding film and television projects well into his 70s. The medical community's evolving understanding of dyslexia and other learning disabilities has provided Henry with ongoing opportunities to contribute to research and awareness efforts. He has participated in studies designed to better understand how dyslexia affects adults and has worked with educational institutions to develop better support systems for students with learning differences. Henry's health journey illustrates the complex relationship between physical, mental, and emotional well-being, particularly when dealing with conditions that affect cognitive function and self-perception. His experience demonstrates how proper diagnosis and treatment can be transformative even when they come later in life, and how health challenges can become sources of strength and purpose rather than simply obstacles to overcome. Personal losses and family tragedies. The journey through life inevitably brings moments of profound loss and grief. And Henry Winkler's experience has been marked by several significant losses that have shaped his character and deepened his understanding of resilience, family bonds, and the importance of cherishing relationships while they exist. These experiences of loss have occurred against the backdrop of his public success, creating a complex dynamic between his professional achievements and personal struggles with grief and mourning. The most foundational losses in Henry's life were connected to his family's immigrant experience and the Holocaust trauma that permeated his childhood home. While his parents, Harry and Ilse Winkler, had successfully escaped Nazi Germany before the worst atrocities occurred, they lost numerous family members who remained behind in Europe. Henry grew up hearing stories of relatives who had perished in concentration camps, creating a profound awareness of loss and survival guilt that affected the entire family dynamic. The weight of this generational trauma manifested in various ways throughout Henry's childhood and young adulthood. His parents carried the psychological burden of survivor's guilt having escaped, while so many of their friends and family members did not. This background of loss and displacement created an atmosphere in the Winkler household where success and safety were never taken for granted, and where the awareness of how quickly everything could be taken away was a constant undercurrent. As Henry became successful in Hollywood, the loss of his father, Harry Irving Winkler, in the late 1990s, marked a significant turning point in his emotional and spiritual development. His father had lived to see Henry's success and had been proud of his son's achievements, but their relationship had been complicated by the academic struggles of Henry's youth and his father's inability to understand his son's learning challenges. The death brought both grief and a complex mix of regret over conversations they never had and understanding they never fully reached. The loss of his father also brought Henry face to face with his own mortality and the finite nature of opportunities to heal family relationships. He had spent years trying to prove himself worthy of his father's approval. And while that approval had eventually come, there remained unresolved feelings about the years of academic struggle and misunderstanding. Processing this grief required Henry to examine his own role as a father and his determination to create different dynamics with his own children. Henry's mother, Ilse, lived longer than his father, but watching her age and eventually lose her independence presented its own form of gradual loss. The woman who had been so strong during their immigration and early years in America slowly became more fragile and dependent. Henry took on increasing responsibility for her care, while balancing his career demands, creating stress and emotional challenges that tested his ability to manage multiple life priorities simultaneously. The death of his mother represented the final connection to his family's European past and the direct link to the survival story that had defined so much of his identity. With both parents gone, Henry became the primary keeper of family history and the one responsible for passing on the stories of survival, immigration, and rebuilding that had shaped his character. This responsibility added another dimension to his sense of loss, as he grieved not just for his parents, but for an entire era of family history. Throughout his career, Henry also experienced the loss of colleagues and friends from the entertainment industry. Deaths that reminded him of the temporary nature of success and the importance of relationships beyond professional achievements. The deaths of fellow actors, directors, and crew members he had worked with over the decades created a growing awareness of his place in the generational succession of Hollywood, and the responsibility he felt to honor the memory of those who had influenced his career. One particularly significant loss was the death of Tom Bosley, who played his television father Howard Cunningham on Happy Days. Bosley had been not just a co-star but a mentor and father figure who had provided stability and guidance during Henry's early years of fame. Their relationship had extended beyond the television series, and Bosley's death in 2010 represented the loss of someone who had been instrumental in Henry's professional and personal development during a crucial period of his life. The loss of other Happy Days cast members over the years created a profound sense of the passage of time and the dissolution of what had been like a second family during the show's run. Each death reminded Henry of the unique bond that had been created during those years of working together, and the impossibility of recreating that particular chemistry and camaraderie. These losses also brought increased media attention to Henry, as one of the surviving principal cast members, adding public dimension to his private grief. Henry's experience with loss has also included the more everyday, but no less significant losses that come with aging and changing circumstances. The loss of physical abilities. The changes in the entertainment industry that made certain types of roles less available to him, and the natural evolution of friendships and professional relationships all contributed to his understanding of impermanence and adaptation. The COVID-19 pandemic brought additional losses and challenges as Henry, like many people his age, faced increased isolation and the loss of normal social and professional interactions. The entertainment industry was particularly hard hit, and Henry lost several colleagues to the virus while also experiencing the broader social losses that the pandemic created for everyone. This period required him to develop new coping mechanisms for dealing with loss and uncertainty. Henry's approach to processing loss has been deeply influenced by his Jewish heritage and the family history of survival through tragedy. The concept of resilience in the face of overwhelming loss, the importance of remembering those who have died, and the responsibility to continue living meaningfully despite grief are all themes that connect his personal experience to broader cultural and religious traditions. The writing projects Henry has undertaken, particularly his children's books and memoirs, have served as ways of processing loss and preserving memory. Through these works, he has been able to honor the people who have influenced his life while also sharing the lessons learned from experiencing significant losses. This creative approach to grief has provided both personal healing and a way to help others who may be facing similar experiences. As Henry has aged, his perspective on loss has evolved from something to be endured to something that can deepen appreciation for current relationships and experiences.